Selling in the billions each year, Rainbow Mealworms is your one-stop shop for all your insect needs. Their quality feeders and A-plus customer service keep me coming back to support the health and growth of all of our animals. Visit them today at rainbowmealworms.net to place your order.
What is going on, everybody? Happy holidays. I don't know. I was just doing something right now, so I totally just biffed that intro. But welcome back to another Geeky Gecko Creations live stream. Let me find the chat. Let me find the chat here. What's going on, Denise? Good to see you. Oh, my shirt is kind of matching the stuff in the back. I have a new kind of video design layout here. Got some US Art promotion in the top corner here. Rainbow Mealworms, of course. You know, we love those guys over there. Hopefully we'll get to meet Rainbow Mealworms in Pomona, California next month. So I'm not sure if any of you guys are from California, but we will be at the California's largest reptile show, which is called the Reptile Super Show, at one of their locations in Pomona, California in January. So I just rented the car today. It's pretty cool. I can rent a whole van to fit everything in, and really looking forward to that. So Carlos Gonzalez, welcome. Mr. Wizard Official, Denise Ray, one of our group experts at our Facebook group, Non-Judgmental Leopard Gecko Keepers and Breeders. That group is really taking off. I did not expect it to get as many followers as it has so far. So I think it just peaked around 420 today, which is really interesting. And that's great, because it's always been my goal to just create a platform where people could have fun talking leopard geckos, which is why I'm so big on just creating videos and content, because I love leopard geckos and would like people to join. So Code Red Reptiles, you have returned. Yes. So good to meet you guys. I have to check to see if one of my snakes ate this rodent that I was force feeding to it. Every once in a while, you'll get ball pythons that don't want to eat their food. And if you want them to grow and everything like that, you definitely want to try to get them force fed. Otherwise, sometimes they won't eat at all. And it looks like the ball python did. So ball python is looking good. Let me get used to flipping this camera around. Video settings. We're going to go to back facing, I believe. Click off. So this is a beautiful, it's actually a pretty rare ball python. This is a clown Russo that is het for puzzle. So it has two recessives floating around in it. The Russo gene looking good. We don't want that one to throw up, so we're going to put that one back. We got some puzzle stuff in here as well. This table is really in the way. I know this is not a ball python based platform, so we're not going to stick with ball pythons too much here. But I do love me some ball python genetics as well. And here's one of our visual puzzle productions this year of a ball python. So it has that very cryptic puzzle-like piece look. As it grows, it might have some parts of the pattern that start to look like muscles, like somebody flexing. But yeah, so I'll put this one back. We'll go back to the gecko room. Okay, let me also switch the video settings around here. Back to normal. Okay, sweet. So that ball python ate. Really happy about that. You know, it ate on its own the first couple of weeks, but then it just didn't want to eat, you know, and sometimes that happens and you're forced with the decision to like let it starve itself and not grow, or assist feed it. And assist feeding is something pretty popular in ball pythons and some snakes. So David Yu, hello. Let's see. Okay, so you guys have to keep me honest here. I really need to start working out again. And Whitney is going to the gym. And since I'm not going to the gym, I have to do push-ups on stream. So maybe we could do something fun like, I don't know. You guys let me know. Maybe you can ask me a question. If I don't want to answer the question, I do push-ups. Or if I answer wrong, I do push-ups or something like that. But I'm going to start off right now with 20 push-ups, okay? So I'll let you watch me to make sure that I'm honest here. That's 10. Okay. I really need your guys' help encouraging me to do push-ups and work out because I have not been going to the gym. I'm eating a lot more. I'm the heaviest I've ever been in my life. And yeah, I need to get back into a healthy routine. So getting that heartbeat up, keeping it going. And if you guys want to jump along, every time I do some push-ups, you could do 10 push-ups as well. Just something to have some fun. So Code Red, I bought my first crested gecko. Her name is Yoshi, and she is a Dalmatian. Yeah, that is fun. Do you like our, also, I just noticed we have our Christmas themed kind of background over there too. If I was to make the screen smaller, like my screen, it would like show some Christmas trees and stuff like that. But congratulations on your gecko. That's awesome. I'm also testing out whether the size of this screen right now, if that's kind of like annoying for people as viewers, compared to like if the screen is bigger. So the other option that I have, like I can make the screen full size like this, which I kind of tend to like the full size screen because when I'm showing stuff, you know what I mean? It can like show the geckos a little bit bigger, but it kind of also takes away from like the theme and the pattern and all that kind of stuff. Oh, let me check something out real quick. I was trying to see if it would stream to our new Facebook group page. So let me see if it's currently streaming to our new Facebook page. If not, I might have to adjust a couple things, but I don't know. I don't know if it is. Oh, it is. That's awesome. Okay, so it's streaming to the new Facebook page, which means we are well and connected. So what do you think? Okay, let me get your guys' vote on whether you like this kind of setup where it doesn't have any like borders or anything like that, or whether you like this where it shows a little bit of borders, it shows a little bit of like background kind of theme and stuff like that. So Bam Bam, I came into the live with Frank doing push-ups. I was so I need to work out more. You know what I mean? So throughout this live, I'm just gonna drop and start doing some push-ups. And if you want to as well, I've been eating nothing but junk, guys. This has been terrible for me, but this has been an ongoing problem for a long time. I really need to change my diet, get back into a workout routine. Start even doing stuff I like to do at the gym, like racquetball, basketball, hanging out with some friends if I can at the gym. As you get older, that can kind of fall away more easily because everyone's busy. They have kids and all that kind of stuff, you know. Mealworms are going really good, bro. Oh, Jay, that's awesome. That's our boy right here. That's our boy Jay. We're working on some partnership stuff with Jay. He's local here in Arizona as well. Bought some geckos from us. So what'd you get for Christmas, Jay? Anything pretty cool? Let us know. Let me know if you guys got anything really exciting for Christmas that you really liked, whether it's a gift card or an actual gift or money, whatever it is. So if Max Snow Blood looks red, what would be the appearance of a Super Snow Blood? So if a Max Snow Blood looks red, I've never really seen a Max Snow Blood Tangerine that looks red, like red. But super snow. Okay, so here's the thing with snow. Okay, little bit of a vocabulary lesson. Snow is actually an axanthic morph of leopard gecko. Now, the first version of snow, one copy of snow, removes some yellow and some red patterning, which will also be orange as well. You know what I mean? So you're not going to have red, you're not going to have yellow, you're not going to have orange, you're not going to have those colors in the most saturated levels. You're not going to have that if you have one copy of the snow gene. It's removing some red, removing some orange, removing some yellow. If you have two copies of the snow gene, it's removing all red, removing all orange, removing all yellow. That is called axanthic. Much more popular to hear the term axanthic in ball pythons because it's typically linked to like recessive genes. But in ball pythons, there's actually an incomplete dominant axanthic as well. It's called red axanthic. I don't know why they call it red axanthic, but it's called red axanthic. And it basically, means that one copy of the gene removes some color, two copies of the gene removes even more color. But in ball pythons, axanthic is much more popular of a term. You don't really hear that in leopard geckos. Do not confuse axanthic with hyperzanthic. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do this. Let's have some fun. Okay, before we have fun, I gotta do 10 push-ups before we have fun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, okay. All right, now let's have some fun with the board here. Okay. Video settings, camera. All right. So. There are two terms in leopard geckos, okay? There is hyperzanthic. Okay? Hyper means more. Xanthic means yellow, orange, red. Okay? So hyperzanthic means brighter yellow, brighter orange, brighter red. Axanthic, do you see how there's the letter A before xanthic? Axanthic means no color. An axanthic animal, a fully axanthic animal, is only going to be black and white. I love little drawing boards, okay? So don't confuse these two terms. Hyperzanthic means more yellow, orange, red. Axanthic means no yellow, orange, red. Or in the case of snow, snow is reduced orange, yellow, red. And super snow is completely removing orange, yellow, red. Now, there may be some very minor exceptions to that, where every once in a while, you might see an animal that has color on it that is like a super snow or a regular snow, but those are general terms that will apply. Okay, so does that help? Let me know. Let me grab my chair, actually, from the ball python room. Keep the second. No border. Okay, I feel you guys. I feel you. I appreciate your input. This ball python room got so many wood chips on the floor, like the little cocoa block chips. You know, our house is kind of cold in the winter, so I actually enjoy going into the little reptile rooms when I'm cold because the reptile rooms are warmer. So, same. I got to get back on the grind. I was 200 pounds and gained back 50. So the heaviest I was ever in my life was high school. I was 185. Then I dropped down to around 165 average in my mid-20s. to 175. So 165 to 175 in my mid-20s when I was working out a lot and actually putting on muscle and stuff. So in high school, I was 185 pounds of like half muscle, half fat. And then in my 20s, I was like 175 pounds, 165 to 170 of less fat, more muscle. And now I just hit 210 pounds the other day. I fear showing you my belly. I could show you my belly, but I hit 210 pounds, and that is definitely not as much muscle and definitely more fat. And you know, my eating habits and stuff, it makes me feel more unhealthy, and I just want to get back to a place where I feel healthier again, and am healthier. And so I don't know, no excuses. I just gotta start doing it. Be more disciplined with my food, be more disciplined with my workouts. You know what I mean? I've just been putting all my time into the animals and stuff, but that's gonna do me no good if I have health issues or complications and stuff. So I need to take care of myself, you know? So Without Borders looks better. Thank you. Oh, the Black Knight is male. You mean the Black Knight I sold you is male? Are you sure? Are you sure? But that'd be awesome. Did you get another Black Knight? I saw you showing, I saw Jay showing another Black Knight on his Leopard Gecko channel. Lucky's Geckos. Let me know if that is the same one. And some of the snow/super snow eggs. Oh, cool, cool. What's going on, Henry? Happy Monday. Oh, so this Friday, we are interviewing with Sophie. Sophie from Sophie's Geckos. Then, also, I got JMG Reptiles to do a live stream with us. So I messaged him if he wanted to be a guest on our live stream and talk about his business and promote him because, you know, I've looked up to JMG for a while. I mean, he's a reputable breeder. He's done a lot of breeding of different species, you know, and leopard geckos is one of his main focuses. He said that he would come on the show and talk about the lemon frost gene. So that is in the making. We might have an episode with JMG. We might have an episode with Noah Bounds, because that has kind of been in the works for a while, just waiting for him to pick a date. And we'll see if we make that happen. Because I think controversial topics is not necessarily bad, but what's bad is disrespectful language and treatment of others. So if you're not part of our group, non-judgmental leopard gecko keepers and breeders, that group on Facebook is meant to be a place where you could talk about things openly, in a respectful way. Because at the end of the day, there's so many ways to do something correct. You could use belly heat. You could use over the head, over the cage heat. You could use ambient room temperature heat. Many different ways to take care and breed leopard geckos successfully. What I want to try to encourage people to steer away from is taking your experiences and trying to force others to do that and then shunning them and looking at them as less than human if they don't. Because at the end of the day, there's very few things in this life that are worth condemning others for, because all of us are guilty of certain things. You know what I mean? All of us are guilty of neglecting our animals from time to time and not giving them the most care or the best setups, you know? And so for us to look down upon others that we think aren't doing things in the way that they should, it's kind of a judgment against ourselves when we do that. So I try to encourage people not to do that. And if they do see something that they would like to advise on, be gentle with your correction. You know, if you see somebody who has a hot rock, let's say, in their leopard gecko cage, because hot rocks are still sold, you could tell them, hey, I've had some experience, or I've heard of some people who have had experiences with their animals getting burned, because leopard geckos and reptiles, they don't feel the heat sometimes until it's too late. And by the time that they feel that it's too hot, they're already burned, and now they're at risk for infection and open wounds. So I just want to let you know. And then if that person chooses to continue to use a hot rock, don't condemn them for it. That you've already warned them, you've already told them. You know what I mean? But the way that you present information and the way that you give people advice is also huge. If you were to tell somebody, hey, you're an animal abuser, you should never have had that heat rock, and let's say this is a brand new keeper and has no idea what you're talking about, you're immediately going to scare them off from you. So there's an approach to giving correction and an approach to giving advice that is more helpful. And it's usually a gentle, you know, I think the Bible says a soft tongue turns away wrath, right? So like a soft answer, a gentle answer turns away an argument, you know. That's not always the case, because I've given some soft answers to some people that have still argued back. However, in general, you're going to catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And what that means is if you're sweeter and more kind and more gentle, you're going to draw more people in and open more people up to your perspective than if you are rough and nasty like vinegar. So, are you ready for leopard gecko breeding season? My females randomly started ovulating today. Yes, we just started getting some mandarins that just started ovulating, and I'm deciding if I want to breed them. They are in their first year, so I think they're like 7-8 months old, and they might be, I don't know, like 55 to 60 grams. So like they're at that point where they could definitely breed, or they might be like 50. They might be around 50, because I remember looking at them and I was like, they're not fully grown yet, but they're big enough to produce. Do I want to breed them? You know what I mean? And that was like 6 mandarin girls. That's a really good project for us, the mandarin project. So the catch-22 is, do I breed them before they're done fully growing, or do I wait for them to fully grow and then breed them, but kind of miss some of their eggs and miss some time with them, you know? Last year, I bred a ton of younger and smaller girls just to see what happens, you know? And I could honestly say most of them did perfectly fine, you know? I can't think of one of them that had issues because of the size. I was really even experimenting with really, really small girls. Like the smallest girl that I bred last year was 38 grams. And she was perfectly fine. A lot of girls that were in that 38 to 45 gram range that I bred, they gave me perfect seasons, you know, 10 to 15 eggs of perfect seasons. And then there were some bigger girls that I bred that were, you know, 55 to 60 grams in their first year. And they gave me crummy seasons. They did not lay any fertile eggs for me. So it can really go one way or the other. It's just really up to you as a breeder, whether you want to. Now, here's what you do need to be prepared for, though. Some females will go off of food more when they are breeding. So if you have a small girl that's not eating, she's going to start getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier, and you might have to give her critical care, or you might have to stop breeding her and feed her so that she puts on weight. So that's really what you need to be concerned with, is if you breed a girl below 55 grams, there's a higher chance that she's going to have a dramatic weight loss. If she has that dramatic weight loss, are you ready to give her critical care? Are you ready to know what to do to get her back up to size? And that's kind of where the ethical side comes in. You know what I mean? So Gecko Craze, welcome. Hyro. So, okay, so in other words, there can't be orange or reddish super snow. Correct. There should never be an orange or yellow or red super snow. I've never seen a super snow that has any color to it, except Black Knight. But of course, black is not. I never said where the term xanthic comes from. Okay, hold on. We're gonna do another lesson. Maybe I won't turn the camera around this time. All right, I gotta do 10 more push-ups though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I always used to separate my workout days into pull and push days, so this will be a push day for me. If you ever need motivation for working out, this keeps it easy. You want to tire out the same muscle group on one day and then give yourself 2 days rest. So in my prime workouts, I would have a push day, which is like bench press, back arms, chest, you know what I mean? There would be a push day. Then I would do a pull day, which is pull-ups, bicep curls, like hammer curls, anything that's using a pulling action, rows, and then I would do a leg day. So it would be push day, pull day, leg day, and then repeat the process. Push day, pull day, leg day. That keeps it easy. So when you go to the gym, you're doing all pushes one day. Then the next day you're doing all pulls. Then the next day you're doing all lower body and legs. And then you could throw abs into every day if you want to hit the next tier of that. The next level of that is starting to throw abs in every single workout, like crunches, sit-ups, flutter kicks, all those kinds of things. But step number one is push, then pull, then leg day, and repeat that process. And then give yourself 1 day off every 8 days. Now, let me show you real quick, video settings. Let's go to camera. Okay, so the term xanthic, which is pronounced xanthic with an X right there, comes from xanthophores. So in humans, we have these things, and I don't believe I'm butchering this. I think this is correct, but if you're a biology major, correct me if I'm wrong. In humans, we have these things called melanophores. This is black color. So this is what determines black color, darker and lighter levels of pigmentation in humans is melanophores. In geckos do have melanin. They do have melanophores, which produce black pigment, but they also have something called xanthophores. Xanthophores are responsible for yellow, red, orange, and shades in between. So xanthophores are responsible for these colors. Xanthic is just referring to the fact that these colors exist. And then axanthic, as we covered before, is a term that is used to say that these colors do not exist in the animal. So there's the little lesson. The term xanthic comes from xanthophores, which is part of a larger group of cells that create color, which is called chromatophores. So chromatophores in leopard geckos are responsible for all of the color in the leopard gecko. So chromatophores, if I'm remembering this correctly, chromatophores are the umbrella term. They're all the way at the top. Underneath chromatophores are xanthophores, which are red, orange, yellow pigment, melanophores, which is shades of black, and then iridophores, which is where the lemon frost mutation comes in. The lemon frost mutation has an imbalance of iridophore production. There's an overproduction of iridophores that do not die. Iridophores are certain crystal-like cells that reflect color in a reptile. Chameleons are really, really popular for iridophores, so that's what allows them to reflect all different kinds of colors and blend into their background. Red, blue, green, yellow, all of that is controlled by the iridophores in chameleons. And most leopard geckos do not have high amounts of iridophores. And the lemon frost mutation creates high amounts of iridophores that do not die off. And so that's kind of where the mutation is stemming from and everything like that. Norman, was it hard to find it today? Is being a breeder your only source of income? Tell me how you got started. That's a great question. So right now, leopard gecko breeding or reptile breeding is our only source of income right now. I've been doing it. This is going on my second year as a full-time business. So the way I got started was in about 2018, I started recollecting leopard geckos with the intent to build a business out of it. But I did not plan on going full-time into business until I retired at the age of 66 or whatever, and I would have benefits, a pension, Social Security, and I would do leopard geckos as a side-time business once I retired. That was always my plan. However, I lost my job at the beginning of COVID, and I already had a pretty sizable leopard gecko collection at that point. I was already looking at like 200 to 300 breeders for that year. This was just a couple years ago in like 2019, 2020. At the same time, I ran into an old family member of mine that I had never met out here in Arizona. This person happened to be a distant cousin of mine, and they came over our house with their family. So they enjoyed a good time of playing with our geckos, our snakes, seeing our operation. And over the next couple weeks, after that family member reconnected with us, we started having discussions about investment opportunities. And they wound up becoming an equity partner in our business. So as of right now, you know, so they became an equity partner in our business, which means they own a portion of the business, and then I own the other portion of the business, but we sort of balance the business out. You know, I provide the physical labor, the work, the expertise in taking care of the animals, all of that kind of stuff, and my business partner provides some financial security, investment in projects. And so when my business partner came into business with me, we invested into black knight leopard geckos, and then we invested heavily into ball pythons because I already had a lot of tangerine leopard geckos and all that stuff. So I didn't need more investment in other morphs of leopard gecko. I needed investment in black knight, and so that's where we focused. They helped me buy 6 black knights, 1 male and like 6 females. One of the females was a baby, which actually turned out to be a male, and the baby wound up turning out to be a male, and we bred the other 5 females. And as we bred those 5 females, we started creating a massive black knight project, which we now have today. And so that has really helped me. But the only reason, when my business partner came into business with me, I looked at my wife and I said, hey, with these amounts of investments, I think I can do this full time. We have a little bit of money saved up. Would you let me try this full time? As long as I'm able to cover the bills, pay for the mortgage, all that kind of stuff, we should be okay. And so my wife was supportive of that. And so far now it's been about 1.5 years since making that decision. And just this last month, I'm proud to say that we were actually more positive than ever financially just this last month, which is really encouraging because I don't know if you know this, but 80% of businesses fail within the first year. The next 10% of businesses fail within the next 2 years. The next 5% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. So what I'm saying is only like 2% of actual businesses that start up succeed. And so the fact that we're already succeeding after only 1.5 years, you know, means that we made some smart decisions, some right decisions. Now I've also made some wrong decisions, which is where this channel comes from, where I can teach others and encourage others and whatnot on what decisions might not be best for them, and then they can make their own decisions. But yeah, as time goes on, I would like to make more business-focused content of how we got to where we are today, and maybe even start a Patreon on that is focused on business, you know, starting a reptile business. But anyway, starting any business is not easy, and especially a reptile business is not easy because these are animals that you need to take care of, not merchandise. Merchandise can sit on a shelf and you don't have to clean the poo or feed merchandise. You have to clean poo. You have to feed these animals And that's the extra level that it takes. But it's definitely possible for those who are passionate, and the people that really make it in this hobby are people not necessarily that don't make mistakes, because everybody makes mistakes. The most successful reptile breeders in the hobby today have made plenty of mistakes. But what separates them from people that were not successful is the fact that they didn't give up. So one of the most number one pieces of advice that I could give is don't give up. I would actually probably say not giving up is advice number two. Advice number one would be study others who are successful, study the market that you want to be successful in, and don't get in over your head. I would put those pieces of advice before not giving up. And if you can do those three things, you know, studying the market, making smart investments, and not giving up, if you could, you know, prioritize those three things, I think you're off to a good start, and you might be able to make a successful business or side hobby hustle out of it one day. You know what I mean? Wow, so that one's looking really good. Oh, Charlie Geckos is here. I wanted to get Charlie Geckos on an interview because reptiles is blowing up right now in Mexico. So if you are Mexicana, yes, or Hispania, yes. If you are of Spanish descent or Mexican descent, Charlie is in Mexico, I believe. Yeah, he's from Mexico. There are some really big reptile moves being made in Mexico right now, and leopard geckos is one of the species that we should be able to start shipping to Mexico and working with the Mexican hobbyists over there, opening up different countries for avenues of trade and revenue is only going to help the market. And there are some pioneers right now that are working on that. So Charlie's Geckos is one of the biggest pioneers for the reptile industry right now in Mexico, along with Miguel Garcia of Always Evolving Reptiles. So Yvette, really good to see you. That Black Knight is male, male, male. I'll show you after for sure. Okay, yeah, that's crazy. So I sold Jay a projected female, and turns out it's looking male, and it's looking to be really, really good quality male as well. So that's awesome. Grady Womack. I also need to check for ovulations. First go around this season. Just ordered an incubator. I need more research to know exactly what to look for. Grady, we actually got some great videos on how to check ovulations in females. And then when you get the eggs, how to check if an egg is good. Also, how to incubate eggs. We have a lot of videos like that on our YouTube channel. And then on our Facebook group, Non-Judgmental Leopard Gecko Keepers and Breeders, I just created a featured post today that has a lot of those topics in there. So you could learn how to make the best humid hide. Or I shouldn't say best, right? Because there's many different ways to do things. But the way that I do things, there's a lot of videos on there that I found that work really good for me. You know what I mean? So Dino creators, that's really cool. My geckos never do hammer curls. What is the healthiest food staple for leopard geckos? In my opinion, is mealworms. They're not too fatty. They're not too high or low in any one area of nutrition. And I have a video on the number. I shouldn't say the number one way, but it's also good to promote ways that work really well. The number one way that I like to feed my leopard geckos is a bowl of mealworms with the proper supplementation in there. Change that out once a week, and that's it. Keeps it nice and simple. I got some videos on that. If you have more questions on that, I could go a little bit more into detail, but there's a certain supplementation that we use and a proper ratio that we use. And the mealworms will eat that supplementation and get gut loaded on that, so they don't need any gut loading prior. And the reptiles do perfectly fine. I've been super successful breeding, keeping leopard geckos, babies, adults, breeding females this way for the last 4 to 5 years. So Dragonheart Exotics, good to see you guys. Least oh my gosh, not Lisa. I did not mean to say Lisa. Why? Sarah. And your husband. I don't know why I can't think of your husband's name right now, but heads and tails, that's pretty cool. My neighbor found a leopard gecko in his garage. That can happen. They can get lost and they'll eat and they'll survive. Leopard geckos survive the harshest summers of 120 plus degrees in the Middle East and the harshest winters of 30 or below in the Middle East. Leopard geckos know how to survive. They are remarkable creatures. I have other reptiles, but my understanding was that typically the concern comes from vision issues associated with. So, ultraviolet radiation and albino leopard geckos is one of those controversial topics. But as long as the leopard gecko has places to hide and retreat, I don't believe the UVB light will hurt the eyes of the leopard gecko, you know? Hey there, new viewer here. I've been enjoying your previous live streams and appreciate the great info you shared. Thank you so much. I've learned more about leopard geckos from you than I have from all other sources I found. Humbled. Appreciate that. That means a lot. And again, I was never a big fan of Facebook because I always enjoyed making videos, and then I also enjoyed the short content creation design of Instagram. But I gotta say, since our Facebook page has been taking off, I think Facebook pages that are not judgmental are still a great place for people to connect, because you could have longer questions and more pictures and stuff that you could put on post, and you could do things on Facebook that you can't do anywhere else. So I'm really, really excited for our Facebook page. Right now, we have 2 group experts on that page, Denise Ray, which you will see here in our live streams, and then myself. And it's kind of geared towards people that are like-minded, because there's a lot of different Facebook pages that you could be a part of. But one of the reasons that I like Denise and I trust Denise's information on our page is because she has a lot of experience in the reptile hobby, even more experience than me time-wise. But she's not super judgmental. And even though she could be super judgmental with the amount of time and experience she has, she's very open and welcome to a lot of the ideas that I've been putting forward, and a lot of the customs and the ways that I have been, teaching others and making video content, even though I'm really only like 5 years into the hobby. So sometimes people that are older in the hobby, they get really, really judgmental towards people that are younger in the hobby. And I don't see that from her. So that's really awesome. And a lot of our views, I don't want to say every single view because I don't want to speak for her, but a lot of our views and perspectives line up to where we both trust each other when dealing with new customers and new people in the leopard gecko hobby. We trust that we're both going to give advice that is helpful to somebody and not hurtful. And so it's hard to find that in somebody nowadays, somebody that's not judgmental, but also is willing to give advice that is not harmful, but also open to different avenues of doing things, because there's a lot of different ways to do things. So anyway, I'm kind of going around in circles, but a great thing about our Facebook group is, we got a couple group experts on there. We have some other people that give their opinions, which I might not necessarily agree with, but I let them speak their opinion as long as it's done in a respectful way. And I try to stay away from comments that are like, you must do this or you must do that. In my opinion, there's only a few musts in leopard geckos. You know what I mean? Like, a leopard gecko must have calcium with D3 if they don't have ultraviolet radiation. Otherwise, they're going to develop MBD. Like, that's been proven so many times. So there's a few musts. But even then, I'm very careful how I word things. You know what I mean? Like, there's ways to be gentle and kind in the way you word things. So with something like that, let's use that as an example. If somebody posted a question and said, do I need supplementation for my leopard gecko? Instead of saying you must do it this way or else your gecko's going to die, what I would say is, I would phrase it in a way that's like, it's been highly shown that leopard geckos that do not receive calcium with D3 have a high chance of developing metabolic bone disease, which can lead the animal to serious health issues and death and a very short lifespan. So like I would phrase it in a way that is very descriptive, so the person doesn't feel like they're just listening to a robot that's commanding them something to do. Like explain to the person why doing something a certain way is helpful and what the alternative is. You know what I mean? So something like that. You know what I mean? Kind of going into more detail. So out of 100 gecko breeders, how many do you think make it to the profitable stage? I would say out of every 100 leopard gecko breeders, I would probably say one or less make it to profitability. And the reason I say profitability is because for a company to be profitable, you have to be adequately paying your employees, even if that's you. And so let's just take minimum wage, for example. Minimum wage will pay about $30,000 a year. So let's say you have $10,000 of leopard gecko expenses and you make $20,000 in leopard gecko sales. 20,000 minus 10,000 is $10,000 in profit, right? Wrong, because you did not pay the person yet that was taking care of those animals. If you paid them even a minimum wage salary of $30,000 a year, you would take your profits, your so-called profits of $10,000 and subtract another $30,000 from that, and now you're negative $20,000 in the hole. To become a profitable company, you have to pay all expenses, which includes employees. And so otherwise, it's just a hobby. Now, I think a lot of people have profitable hobbies, but not profitable businesses. A profitable hobby is making more than your expenses, but not paying for your time and not paying for your employees' time. Many people who have profitable hobbies have full-time jobs. So they might be a construction worker, a teacher, a veterinarian, a nurse. They have full-time jobs that are paying for their expenses and sometimes paying for their hobby. So the hobby is not reliant upon their time, money, resources to support the hobby. That's not a business. That's a hobby. A business is actually self-sustaining. It pays for its employees, it pays for its taxes, it pays for its expenses, and then it's profitable on top of that. So I would say less than 1% of reptile businesses are profitable. But I'd probably say 10 to 15% of reptile hobbies are profitable if you invest and do things in the right way, which means you're not in over your head. You're not producing a bunch of animals at low cost that make you break even. You have less animals with a higher price tag instead of more animals at a lower price tag, which will just make you break even because of the expenses. Does that make sense? So feel free to ask more questions on that. I need 10 more push-ups and some water. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I'm gonna grab my water. I'm gonna grab some coffee. Come back. I think my coffee is cold right now, but that's okay. Oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna show you the belly. Oh my gosh. I look pregnant. There is the belly. There is all 210 pounds of myself now. Gosh. I've been making the climb for a while, okay? The first time I realized I had an issue, there's a museum out here in Arizona called I think it's just called the Arizona Science Museum or something in downtown Phoenix. It's a great place. If you haven't been, the Science Museum in Phoenix is awesome. I got on the scale in the Science Museum and I weighed about 190 pounds, which, like I said, is 15 pounds heavier than my average of 175 pounds in my mid-20s. So at that moment, I noticed I was gaining weight. I was 190 pounds, never been 190 pounds in my life. That was like 2 years ago. I did not correct the issue. And now, 2 years later, I'm 210 pounds consistently. That's a problem for me. You know what I mean? Bull Tull, I will continue to support you, brother. Your videos have given me the confidence to start my own project. Yeah, so Bull Tull bought one of our Magma line babies. I'm just gonna start calling it that, Magma line, because Magma is a really, really nice Mandarin Tango Crush orange green project animal that we got from Scaled Art Reptiles. And they put a lot of time and a lot of years into finding the most reddish orange geckos. And when I found this opportunity to buy Magma, I jumped on it, and I don't regret it at all because Magma is a great breeder. So I'm just going to start calling it Magma line animals. We bred Magma to a bunch of Inferno Tangerine geckos, and then those offspring, which had half of Magma's DNA, we bred them back to Magma, and they're just producing some really, really amazing stuff. There's even this one project, if you look on our Instagram right now, that I'm calling the Tiger Project, because it has bright orange stripes with green breaking up those stripes, and eventually I'm going to put black spots in there, or black patterning in there would be part of that project goal. So I'm really excited for that. That's one of the first like tangerine projects that I recognize that I think I can really, really bring to fruition, you know. Besides creating our own Charmanders, which has already been done, you know, an all orange gecko with an all orange tail, that's already been done, but I still want to do it from our geckos here. Our own clown line. These are other projects that I'm working on, but the Tiger Project is probably one of the more ones that I'm more excited for after noticing that a couple of offspring have this kind of banded effect. And so by breeding them together, selective breeding, I can bring more of that in. What is the bluish greenish color on the top of some leopard gecko's head? I don't know what that is, but the more see-through and the lighter that color that the gecko is on its head, the more you can see that bluish greenish color. If somebody knows what that bluish greenish color is, biologically, let me know. I don't know what it is. It might just be an area of pigmentation that is naturally that color for leopard geckos for whatever reason. But I know what you're talking about. So I'm glad you brought up UVB. Today she's having trouble catching insects. She's definitely not albino. Do you think I should stick with it? So how big, so Jasmine, how big is your tank? You never want a UVB that is so bright for the animal that it can't get away from it. So I would suggest if the UVB is over the entire tank, maybe turn the UVB light so it's only over half the tank. If you think it's too bright. If it's not too bright and the gecko has plenty of places to hide, then don't worry about it. Leopard geckos mainly hunt at night. Let me put that in quotes, mainly. There are exceptions to that. But I'm not sure what kind of heat lamp you have as well, and if that's projecting light. If you feel like there's too much light in the cage, then you can kind of turn the lights so it's not so heavy in the cage. But I don't think lighting is the issue. I think the issue is leopard geckos will mainly hunt at night when the lights start to become dusk. At least that's what I've noticed in my experience. They typically come out mostly at night. When I used to have like bioactive cages and lighting cages, you know, I used to watch them roam around at night eating the crickets. So I don't think necessarily it's that your light is too bright. Give the gecko time, but I would suggest erring on the side of caution if the light is too bright. So I don't know what kind of light you have in there, how much space the gecko has. If the gecko can get away from the light is important, you know what I mean? To have different hiding places where the gecko can get away. Your thoughts on red lights and cohabitation? Good topics. I still have to do a video on cohabitation. I suggest not cohabitating if you can avoid it. But if you're a breeder like myself, cohabitating 3 to 4 females in one group and then dropping a male in there for 4 to 5 days and then removing the male, that's the easiest way to breed vast amounts of geckos. If you're a small-time breeder, I would not suggest that. If you're moving towards being a big-time breeder, then that's kind of the only way to go. If you're gonna start breeding thousands of geckos a year, you have to do the group method, or you're gonna need 4 to 5 employees to breed every single gecko one-on-one and record that information and all of that. So if you're not breeding, I would suggest not cohabitating any geckos. But if you are going to cohabitate, I would suggest only 2 to 3 females per every 28 quarts of size. And if any females get aggressive with the other females, remove the females that are getting aggressive. That would be my suggestion. But again, I would suggest, number 1, don't cohabitate would be my suggestion. Number 2, if you're a small-time breeder, I would suggest not cohabitating. I would suggest one-on-one breeding. Put the male in with the female, watch them breed, remove the male. 10 minutes later, good to go. Do that a couple times a year for every girl, and she'll have the maximum amount of sperm in her, and you'll be good to go to produce full-time babies. If you are a large-scale breeder, we're talking about 2 to 300 or more breeders, then you're probably going to have to group breed. And if you're group breeding, I would suggest 3 to 4 females in a group, and then dropping a male in with those females for 4 to 5 days, then removing the male. If any females are getting aggressive with each other, remove the aggressive female and set her up in a new group or by herself if she can't be trusted. So I hope that helps. On the red light side of things, there's new science coming out now to suggest that leopard geckos can actually see red light. So the old school method of having a red light on at night for the leopard gecko to hunt, a lot of people are steering away from that now because the gecko doesn't have a 12-hour on, 12-hour off cycle. However, I don't think a red light at night is that big of a deal, especially if you have multiple areas where the gecko can go to that are dark. You know what I mean? Preferably pitch black. That's just my personal thought on it. I don't think the red light's going to do too much harm. I mean, geckos have been kept under red light for 30 plus years. So even if they can see the red light, I don't know if it's that big of a deal. And you have to remember, in the wild, geckos are going to have access to the moon anyway, right? Moonlight is going to create light for them at night to some degree anyway. So feel free to make your own decisions. Those are my personal thoughts on red lights and cohabitation, you know. I try to help in the group where I can. Oh, Bam Bam will be good as well. Yeah. And we're gonna be getting Bam Bam geckos on a new breeder feature Friday, new breeder on the block series as well. So do you distinguish between a breeder and a company? I think a small breeder can make enough to cover expenses. You just answered for me. Yeah. Yeah, being a breeder on a hobby level is different than being an actual business and the methods you have to go about that. I think you said I answered the question, so I'll move on. But I think many breeders on the hobby level can be successful, especially like Norman Davis, the gentleman asking this question. I have a lot of conversations with Norman. I have a really good relationship with Norman. He invested good money into leopard geckos. So let's talk about this for a second, okay? It costs the same amount of money to take care of a, let's just call it cheap, to take care of a cheap gecko versus an expensive gecko, okay? Let's say you go to PetSmart and you buy a gecko for $30. It's going to cost you the same amount of time, money, and resources to take care of that $30 gecko as it would to take care of a $3,000 black night leopard gecko. The only difference is when you breed those two animals, the $30 gecko is going to produce $30 babies. And the $3,000 gecko is going to produce $3,000 babies. So if the food bill costs you, let's just say it costs you $10 a month to feed the $30 geckos, and it costs you $10 a month to feed the $3,000 geckos, you're going to make way more money off the $3,000 geckos than you would off the $30 geckos, because the profit margins are much greater on the $3,000 geckos. That's how hobbyist breeders can be most successful. Investing in animals that are very high dollar, and the return on an investment is going to yield much better profit margins than the return on investment on the cheaper animals. And that's how a lot of hobbyists are very successful in making a lot of money as a hobbyist. I would even say some hobbyists are more financially profitable than some businesses. Okay? So let's use this scenario as an example. Frank Casalina is doing leopard geckos as a full-time business, okay? The expenses that I have to pay for every month for leopard geckos are, let's just say $1,000 in mealworms a month. Let's just say like $100 extra in electricity a month. So that's $1,100. Let's say new tubs and new racks and new equipment comes to an average of, let's just say $200 a month. So now that's $1,300 a month of expenses just for the geckos. I'm not talking about snakes or anything like that. $1,300 a month of expenses for the leopard geckos. Managing social media platforms and websites and all of those things, let's say, is another $200 of expenses a month for a business. Now I'm looking at $1,500 a month that I'm spending. Now I need to count for employees. What does a minimum wage employee make? A minimum wage employee makes around, what is it, like $3,000 a month? $2,000 a month? Let's say they're working 40 hours a week. I don't have my calculator. Times $15 an hour. So $15 an hour times 40 hours a week. Let's just say it's hypothetically around $2,000 a month. It's probably more than that. But to take care of this whole operation, you're going to have to pay, let's just say, one employee, or yourself. You have to count as an employee, and you have to pay yourself an accurate wage of, let's just say, $2,000 a month. I think that's way lower, but my point is going to come across very, very quickly. So the total expenses for me as a business is $2,000 plus $1,500. Okay, that's $3,500 a month as a business expenses that I have to make every single month before I become profitable. But as a hobbyist, you take away the expenses of employees and you just manage a collection that is manageable for you. So the collection is not going to be as big. Let's say you have, let's just use the same number though, $1,500 of expenses, but you're not paying an employee. So to become profitable every single month, you only have to hit $1,500 of expenses before you're profitable as a hobbyist. But as a business, you have to hit $3,500 of expenses every month. That's not even every year. That's every month, month after month. You have to hit that $3,500, and the pressure is on, or the business goes down. As a hobbyist, there's no pressure. You have a full-time job. Your mortgage is paid. Your rent is paid. Your expenses are paid. You're not relying upon the reptiles to pay that stuff. So I hope that makes sense. The difference in hobbyist versus business is, are you paying yourself and are you paying your employees before you become profitable? So I would actually say a lot of businesses get in over their head and they tank. They realize that they can't support $4,000 a month of expenses, and the business crashes and they go to zero. But there are plenty of hobbyists like Norman Davis that do it smart, and they invest in high dollar animals that yield high dollar returns, and then they have other sources of income like jobs, social security, benefits, whatever it might be, other sources of income that's paying for their day-to-day living, and they wind up making a lot of money from their hobby. But I want to do this as a business. I don't want to do it as a hobby. So I'm taking steps towards clearing that $3,500 to $4,000 a month expense as a business and still being profitable on top of that. That's the route that I'm going, but it is not the route that everybody should go. The route that most people should go is the hobbyist route. Don't do it full time. Keep your day job. Just breed animals that are high end or even low end to make a little bit of money on the side. But you don't want to be paying your mortgage with it, because then the pressure is on to make sure things are successful every single month. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. You have to be successful every month or the business is going under. You know what I mean? Quality over quantity is a very accurate statement. For me as a business, I need both. I need quality and I need quantity. If you're a hobbyist, quality over quantity all day long. Unless you want to breed low-end animals and break even and not make any money and be super stressed out. But if you want the opposite of that, if you want to have animals that are desired, if you want to have animals that sell, if you want to have a business that is a hobby that is profitable, you have to go with quality over quantity. But if you're a business, you kind of need both. You know what I mean? In leopard geckos, because the highest end leopard geckos, I don't really think there's enough money even in the highest end leopard geckos to make a business out of it. You know what I mean? Alone, I think you need numbers as well. You need quantity to sell as well. Because, okay, let me use this example. Let's say all you make are the highest value leopard geckos right now sell for about $1,000. There are geckos that sell for more, but the price quickly comes down because of how well geckos could be produced. So let's just say the average high-end point for selling leopard geckos that people are willing to spend in the leopard gecko hobby is about $1,000. There are people spending more, but the $1,000 range, there's more people in the $1,000 range. However, there's not enough people in the $1,000 range. I don't think. I don't know this yet because I haven't had 100 geckos in the $1,000 range to sell every year, but I don't think I could sell 100 geckos a year at $1,000 yet. Maybe. I don't know. This is something I'm going to figure out. I just don't think it's possible for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's not enough people buying $1,000 geckos in the leopard gecko hobby. Number two, there's a lot of breeders that are selling $1,000 geckos in the hobby, so there's a lot of competition. Those are the top two reasons why I don't think you could make a living off of selling only high-end geckos and paying yourself a salary and being profitable. I think you need to sell low-end geckos. I think you need to sell $200 geckos, $300 geckos, $50 geckos, $100 geckos if you're a business, along with $1,000 to $2,000 leopard geckos as a business. This is just me speaking as a business. As a hobbyist, you could just sell $1,000 geckos, but they might not sell very quickly. You might sell one every couple of months, but it doesn't matter because you're not relying on that income to pay the bills. You're not relying on that income to become profitable. You're not relying on that income to make future investments. You have other sources of revenue that's bringing money in, so you don't need to be making a ton of money regularly and consistently like a business does or an investor does for a company. You know what I mean? So I hope that makes sense. But ball pythons is a little bit different. There are ball pythons that are selling for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. So literally, if you sell 2 ball pythons at $30,000 each, you just made salary for a year. Does that make sense? Like, it's different with ball pythons that sell for so much more money than leopard geckos. Leopard geckos, you would have to sell 60 leopard geckos at $1,000. Think about that for a second. That's 60 people handing you $1,000 to make a year's worth of wages. You know, compared to ball pythons, you only need two people to pay you $30,000 for 2 animals, and you already made your year's wages. So that's kind of where the strategy that I used as a business in leopard geckos is quality, but also quantity. But if you're not a business, you could just go for quality and you'll be perfectly fine. You know what I mean? Okay, Norman, it feels like I'm max extending on my push-ups, but you could be right. Maybe I'm not. Congrats on the baby coming. You'll make a great mother. Yeah, Magma is a rock star for sure. I think the color on their head is eyes color bleeding through. So like the actual eyeballs, like the shadow of that or the shading of that or the color of that bleeding through. Yeah, that could definitely be. I don't know what the color of, I guess that could be because the color of a leopard gecko's eye is normally black or dark, you know? So that blackness could be shining through the skin and creating this bluish greenish effect, especially on lighter color animals. That would make sense because like a snow, the black coloration on a snow winds up turning purple. And then like above the eyes, that's kind of like a bluish, purplish kind of hue. And the black eyeball shining through that, yeah, it could be, yeah. So the UVB is 1/3 the length of the tank. It's Arcadia, Shade Dweller. I don't think Arcadia Shade Dweller, which is a lower exposure light, I don't think that would be a problem. And if it's only 1/3 the length of the tank, I don't think that's an issue at all. I would just leave that completely fine, completely alone. Just let your gecko adjust and check back in with us. Check back in with me if you need to on it, but I think your gecko will be perfectly fine just to leave it. If you cohabitate breed, how do you know the difference of which female? You don't. So if you cohabitate breed, you put females together in groups of the same genetics. So all my Inferno girls are in one group. All my bold girls are in another group. All my bold stripes are in another group. All my snows are in another group. So you put together groups that are the same genetics, and then you keep track of obviously which male goes to those groups, and that's pretty much how you do it. So you'll never know which female exactly produced it, but it's going to be a female in the group that is all the same genetics. You know what I mean? And if something really weird pops out of that group, then you could isolate each female and breed her individually to see if she replicates the weirdness of whatever genetic came out of that, you know? I cohabitate my two geckos, but when I try to separate them, one escaped the same night, so I put her back with the other, and she has not tried to escape again. Yeah, leopard geckos that are raised together as well do much better in general than leopard geckos that are just thrown together as adults. Coleonyx is a distant cousin of the leopard gecko, and coleonyxes are much more communal. They will actually spend a lot of time together. However, I've seen coleonyxes get aggressive towards each other, and I've seen the same with leopard geckos. Some leopard geckos do not get aggressive towards each other. Other leopard geckos get extremely aggressive towards each other. So I think it just kind of depends on the situation, you know? I know we talked about this last week. I wonder if you could crossbreed leopard geckos and crested geckos. We talked about crossbreeding leopard geckos and fat-tailed geckos, which I think somebody said was possible, but I would love to see proof of that, or I would love to try that one day myself, because I'm a big proponent of hybridization. I love hybridization, but I do believe leopard gecko and crested gecko genetics are too far apart to create a viable animal. Crested geckos and Chihuahua geckos can create a viable hybrid, but crested geckos and leopard geckos I don't think can. But I see what you're saying. That would that would be pretty cool. Dino creators, why not breed your own mealworms? Up to this point, breeding mealworms is a dirty job. It doesn't do well with my sinuses. It takes space, time, money, resources that I did not want to put into it. And we actually have a video on mealworms. You can buy mealworms very, very cheap. Store them in the refrigerator and just store them in the refrigerator and just take them out as needed. So when you own a business with 1,000+ geckos, every second of time matters. And so in a business, there's something called time value ratio. For example, breeding mealworms would not be worth my time, so buying mealworms is worth my time. Instead of me spending time breeding mealworms, I could spend time selling more geckos to pay for the mealworms and make more money that way. So as a business, you have to evaluate, where can I make more money? Where is my time better spent? And up until this point, it's better spent breeding, keeping, caring for the animals instead of starting a side feeder business. Now that may change one day, but for now, at this very moment, it's better for me to spend time with the animals instead of breeding mealworms on mass scale. So I got a good way. How to slim down overweight leopard geckos? Don't feed them. You could literally see all the mealworm dust in here makes me cough. Okay, this is going to sound cruel, but please, guys, I promise you, this is not cruel. Leopard geckos in the wild survive 4 to 5 months without eating because they go into hibernation and brumation. I had a leopard gecko one time go 8 months without eating. She didn't eat anything for 8 months, and she was getting skinny, but not too skinny. She was starting to get to the point where her tail was just as thick as the base of her tail, and it was starting to worry me just a little bit. But she wasn't too bony, or she still had musculature, and that's what you want to look for in a healthy animal, is musculature. She was still okay, but getting skinnier for sure. After 8 months of not eating, she started to eat out of nowhere, and within 2 weeks, she put all her weight back on. So leopard geckos, especially adults, store their weight so well that the only way you could get them to lose weight is literally starving them. Still provide calcium with D3, a water dish, provide normal care, but just don't feed them for 2 months if they're really, really overweight. Or if that hurts your heart too much, just feed them 1 to 2 mealworms a week, barely anything. And they will start to lose weight little by little. And then you can make the appropriate changes as you start to see them losing weight. You could either start feeding them more or feed them a normal amount or start feeding them less if they're not really losing too much weight. And you can kind of make it happen that way. I don't think leopard geckos, I don't know if leopard geckos burn fat through exercise. That's a good question. I would imagine they do. So having them walk around the house and, you know what I mean, like get exercise and stuff like that could help. But the number one thing that is going to help is feeding them less, like dramatically less, or not at all for a certain given period of time. So I hope that helps. Not every hobby breeder can just pop out 6K for 2 geckos. That's another really good point. Some hobbyist breeders are going to find it difficult to sell their animals at high price, even if they bought their animals at high price, because a lot of people only want to buy from the biggest names and they don't want to buy from the smallest names. Now, I'm a big supporter of quality sells. If you have a quality gecko, I'm pretty sure that gecko is going to sell, but one of two things. If you want to sell it fast, you might have to sell it for less. If you want to sell it for the highest market value, you might have to wait 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to a year before it sells, especially if you don't have a big social media platform like we do. We have a huge social media platform that I can show the geckos, talk about the geckos, all of that kind of stuff. If you don't have that, it might take 6 months to a year to sell a $3,000 gecko or even a $1,000 gecko. So great point that Henry brings up. So I find it more profitable if you have your own feeders. Though if he's sponsored, that would be fine. Yeah, like I said, it could be more profitable, but it also might not be worth your time. For example, let me give this example. Let me just give this example, okay? To produce the amount of mealworms I need, which is 400,000 mealworms a month. And beetles die after every 2 weeks. So keep this in mind. Beetles die every 2 weeks. So you constantly need to be sifting beetles, sifting pupa, sifting mealworms, sifting eggs. You're constantly sifting and recycling. To produce that many mealworms a month, 400,000 mealworms a month, would probably take, let's just say, 8 hours of work, okay? In buying $400,000 worth of mealworms a month cost me $1,000 a month. If I take those 8 hours and I put it into producing black knights, if I sell one black knight at $1,000, it takes me 1 minute to sell it and 1 hour to ship it. I just made $1,000 in 1 hour instead of $1,000 in 8 hours that it would have taken me to sift those mealworms that month. Does that make sense? So when you start looking at it on the scale of selling geckos versus producing mealworms, you can sell more geckos to pay for your mealworms if you have that extra time, money, space, resources in the month that you would be putting into mealworms instead of putting it into geckos. If you just put it into making more geckos and having more time to make videos and sell geckos, it could be argued, I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just saying it could be argued that you could make more money with 8 extra hours of selling 8 Black Knights at $1,000 each instead of making the $1,000 that you would with the 8 hours that it would take you to breed those mealworms that month. If that makes sense, if you're kind of tracking with me, you know. Most of the big breeders I buy from have regular full-time jobs. Yeah, that's exactly right. Most people do not do leopard geckos full-time because it's a tough business. The reason it's a tough business is leopard geckos breed very fast. There's a lot of competitors, and the leopard gecko market has been declining for the last 10 years. But we're starting to see that come around with content creators like Bam Bam's Geckos, myself, Luna Geckos, Geckopia. There's a lot more leopard gecko content starting to get out there. There's a lot more excitement and promotion of the leopard gecko hobby than there was over the last 10 years. So I'm really excited to announce that I think the leopard gecko hobby can be trending back upwards over the next 10 years as we come up with different morphs and combinations, and more people start vending shows and showing off leopard geckos. I need some fresh air. So I got to get out of this room. I need some fresh air real quick. I got some really interesting feedback at the last reptile show that I went to. The last reptile show that I went to, a girl walked up to the table and said, "Oh, you got big leopard geckos over here. Your geckos are big." Like, she was super surprised to see how big our leopard geckos were. And in my head, I had some juveniles on the table, which are only 15 to 20 grams. I had some subadults on the table, which are 25 to 35 grams. And then I had some adults on the table, which are 40 grams plus, right? What would make this girl have such a big surprise that the leopard geckos at our table, even some juveniles, which were the first geckos she saw, the place that she was entering in at on our table was the juvenile geckos. And the first thing out of her mouth was, "Oh, your geckos are big." The reason she said that is because most leopard gecko breeders at a show are wholesalers that are selling cheap baby geckos that are like 5 to 10 grams, and they're super, super small and unhealthy and all that kind of stuff. So this girl noticed that we were actually selling bigger geckos. If more people show the designer side of leopard geckos, the leopard geckos will be back up on the trend. Now, what was I going to say? What was I going to say? I think any hobby is what you make it, right? The reason that I refuse to give up on leopard geckos is because I love leopard geckos so much. And I see that there's really so much fun and so much combinations still yet to be made in leopard geckos that I want to personally do. I'm not in leopard geckos because I believe they're trending upwards. I'm in leopard geckos because I honestly believe they're amazing creatures, and I love them the most out of any reptile in the hobby. The more people are in it for that reason, the more it's going to trend upwards. And even if it doesn't trend upwards, even if it stays plateaued, leopard geckos is still the #1 selling reptile in the world, along with bearded dragons. And it will always, mark my words, it will always be the number 1 through 3 selling lizard in the entire world. Here's the top 3 selling lizards: bearded dragons, leopard geckos, crested geckos. Those 3 will always be the top 3 selling lizards in the entire world. So even if the market crashes from a high-end perspective or a super profitability perspective, if you do things right, if you're an expert in leopard geckos, if you create a following, if you don't give up, there will always be money to be made in leopard geckos, because leopard geckos will always be in the top 3 lizards to ever be sold ever in the world, even 200 years from now. You know, we don't know what's going to take place 200 years from now. I'm being a little bit exaggerative, but leopard geckos, crested geckos, bearded dragons, with the exception of not knowing the future, I can pretty confidently say those 3 species will always be top 3 in the reptile hobby until 500 years from now and everything is inbred, so everything dies, which I don't even think that would happen, because I think there's enough variety of genetics within leopard geckos, bearded dragons, crested geckos to last 1,000+ years. But one thing that we do need to be concerned about with leopard geckos, crested geckos, and bearded dragons is that we can no longer import those from the wild at this time. So the only options to get fresh genetics in are through the black market, or if the laws change and we're allowed to import leopard geckos, crested geckos, bearded dragons again from their natural countries, which may happen one day. I would suggest a controlled import, meaning we go to Australia, New Caledonia, the Middle East, we talk to biologists in those areas, and we say, hey, instead of people stealing them from your country, why don't you sell a few every year out of the wild that we could import new genetics in? We will control it. Maybe it's like 100 or 10 out of the wild, and that's going to be in the hands of only certain organizations. They will import that into the pet trade, where we can diversify those genetics, bringing in fresh bloodlines. This is why I'm so big on Afghanicus, fasciolatus, and Turkmenicus, because that diversifies the genetics even more for our hobby. You know what I mean? So I hope all that makes sense. Diamond, we are in Gilbert, Arizona. It's good to see you. We're going to be at the next reptile show out here in Arizona. It's called the Phoenix Reptile Expo. It's the biggest show that Arizona has. Every now and then you'll see huge content creators there, like State 48 Exotics, like Dave Kaufman, Brian Cusco, Clint's Reptiles has even been out here. So it's the #1 reptile show to go to when you're out here in Arizona, and we will be vending that one in April. Hey, Frank, late Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to all you guys as well. I had a layout designed for Christmas, but nobody really liked the layout. They wanted me to have the full-size layout here, so which I like the full-size layout. In the future, there might be some advertising opportunities available here. Like you can see, we have Rainbow Mealworms, which is one of our sponsors. US Arc and US Arc Florida, they're not one of our sponsors, but I like to promote them because they're obviously helping the reptile hobby stay afloat, so that we could ship animals from state to state and keep this hobby going strong for the next 1,000 years. So I like to throw their paraphernalia and branding up. I'm looking for a reptile shipping sponsor. Right now we have 2 options that I'm still entertaining. Maybe 3 options, but you know, one option didn't quite pan out with an offer from one of the companies. So I'm kind of leaning one of 2 ways. So you might start to see a shipping company that we sponsor or or brand or represent here on the channel soon. And we'll see who that winds up being. But if you want your logo placed on this live stream, or if you want me to drop an ad for you in some of our videos, we could talk about that. I might start doing like paid sponsorship opportunities for stuff like that, you know. But is it okay to raise females that are going to be sold together? Or better to keep them separate before being sold? That's a good question. This is my preferred method of raising babies. I have raised babies individually. I've raised them in pairs of 2, which is the siblings that hatch at the same time. And then I've raised them in groups of 6, anywhere from 4 to 8. Okay? No, 4 to 10. I've even experimented with groups of 10 babies together in a big tub. When you have anything more than 2 babies raised together, the chances of them nipping at each other's tails and them dropping their tails goes up. And as they age, the chances of them biting and scarring each other, which is not good for selling, goes up when you have more than 2 together. I've always housed 2 siblings together until they reach 3 months old. And I've had really, really good results with that. No scarring, no tail drops, maybe 1 out of 1,000 tail drops, raising 2 together at a time. Maybe even less. Where I see the issue is when 3 or more babies are raised together, you will see more tail nips and eventually scarring. The reason I separate them at 3 months old is because they start to become sexually mature at around 4 to 6 months. You know, where they start to go into like this sexual maturity where they might become aggressive towards each other, or their body parts might start to develop and they might start trying to mate early with each other. So by 3 months, I separate them into individual tubs, unless they're females that I want to put in a group to grow up together. Then I'll put them in groups of 4 max. But right now, I actually think I prefer groups of 3 because there's better fertility when the male is breeding 3 girls in a group than when the male is breeding 4 girls in a group. So 4 girls in a group is excellent. I've seen excellent fertility with that. But 3 girls in a group, I think, has better fertility. I'm going to be experimenting with that this year. So, gosh, it's getting late. My voice is going out. I'm going to need to go, guys. I know I've been rambling and missed a bunch of questions. But we got a super chat from Yvette. Thank you so much. I've got to head out. Thanks for what you do. Happy holidays, Gecko fam. Thank you so much, Yvette. Really, really appreciate that. I am so sorry I did not get to the rest of the questions here, guys. I was rambling a lot, doing push-ups. So hopefully you could bring those questions to the next live stream. We are here every Monday around 6 to 7 Arizona time. I usually kick it on. You know, I can guarantee you I'll be here on Mondays, but sometimes the time varies between 6 to 7, but it's in the evening. If you ding the notification bell on our YouTube channel, it should notify you when I'm going live. If you want me to personally text you a notification of when we go live, my phone's dying too. Text me 480-299-7657. If you want me to text you when I go live, I'll put you in a group chat of people that I text when I'm going live. The next live stream, so every Monday night, I am here with you guys for about 1 to 2 hours answering your questions. Every Friday night, with the exception of a couple Fridays, we bring on guests. This Friday, we have a guest from Switzerland at 12 o'clock noon. Don't miss it. She's going to be talking about the ghost gene, which is highly rare in the American hobby, and we're going to talk about it. I love you guys. Until then, have a geeky gecko great day. I want to get out of here before my phone dies. I love you guys. Have a happy end of the year and a happy start to your new year. And I will see you guys Friday at noon for Sophie's Geckos from Switzerland. Peace and happy tidings.
Selling in the billions each year, Rainbow Mealworms is your one-stop shop for all your insect needs. Their quality feeders and A-plus customer service keep me coming back to support the health and growth of all of our animals. Visit them today at rainbowmealworms.net to place